Welcome back to another video, and in this video we're going to be continuing on with our core data tutorial series. And in this particular tutorial we are going to be taking a look at how we can delete data in core data. Now again, much like in our video last time where we took a look at updating data, we are going to be using NS Fetched Results Controller to help us with updating our table view and detecting changes in our managed object context and stuff like that. But again, you could do this manually where you delete the object and then you reload the necessary data and all that sort of stuff. Nothing too complicated there. But we're using NS Fetched Results Controller for simplicity and just to make it a little bit more optimized. So, how do we delete data from our core data store? Well, that comes in two different steps, just like updating data. First, you need to actually tell your managed object context to delete the data using the delete method, which, interestingly enough, does not throw any errors. It's a non-throwing function, so you don't have to wrap that in a do try block. What you do need to wrap in a do catch block, however, and mark it with try, is the save method, just like every other time we've used save. All right, and so with that, what we can do is go into our Xcode here, and then the first thing that I want you to do is update your delegate method. Right now we have two cases and a default case. We have the insert and update cases, and then we have the default case. Okay, what I want you to do is above the default case, we're going to say case.delete. And then for this particular case, what we want to do is we want to remove rows from our table view at an array of index paths, which we're just going to pass it our index path that we retrieved in the last video. Then we need to give it an animation and all that stuff. So what we can do in here is we'll say table view dot delete rows at, and then give it the index path, and then give it an animation. We'll say automatic. Okay, and that's it. That's all we need to do for our delete case. It's pretty simple. It's a one-liner, just like all the other ones. So now what we need to do is we need to go into our trailing swipe action, which is our delete swipe action, and actually delete an object. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll go up here. We'll get rid of this comment here. And the first thing that we want to do is we want to get the managed object context that we want to delete the object from. So we'll say let context equals data controller dot container dot view context. Then we want to say context dot delete, and this method will return, well, not return, it won't return anything, but it will take in an object, and this object has to be some kind of NS managed object. So we can give it a to-do item, a to-do list, stuff like that, because they are subclasses of NS managed object. And just like with our leading swipe action, I've already gotten the object from the fetch results controller that we want to work with using the object method. Again, we took a look at that when we did our video initially introducing NS Fetched Results Controller. So if you're not familiar with that, go back to that video. I've called it item. Next, we need to do try context dot save. If that's successful, we call our contextual actions completion handler with true to say, hey, this action was successfully executed. If it wasn't, inside of our catch block, we will have a handler with false passed to it to indicate that something went wrong and the action was not successfully executed. Now, that's it. That's all we need to do. Now our delegate method will get triggered when we delete an object and the table view properly updated. Previously, you would have to do some, without NS-Fetch results controller, you would have to do a little bit more, well, I guess, let's put it this way. It would be a little bit more manual. It would be more involved. So with that, we're good. We can go ahead and run our code here. We'll go into our table. We can say to do item 1 for to-do list 3. We can delete it. And it was removed, but there is one problem. You can see we get removed null, and it's not great, right? So we can, if we quit this and reload it, like we relaunch it, you can see here it is. Everything's good, right? We've gone ahead and removed that to-do list item, and it's no longer there. Therefore, to-do list 2 is no longer being shown to us at the top of our list here. But that whole remove null thing is indeed a problem. Right. So let's go ahead and actually figure out why it did that. Right. So if we go to our delegate method, we can print we want executed. We can run this again. We can remove one of these, so delete. And it did work this time. Sometimes bugs like that will happen, and that's not exactly the developer's fault. It might just be a catalyst bug. But if something like that ever does happen more consistently, what you can do is you can just recall reload data on your table view, and it should go away. All right, it should then update properly. But you can see the first to-do list item for to-do list 3 is actually gone. Okay, so with that, that pretty much does it for this video on how we can delete data from core data and then update our table view properly with ns-fetched results controller delegate and the delegate method that we've provided a implementation for. However, before I go, I do want to mention that if something does go wrong with the delete, like it can't delete it at all, and it can't save it, and we will call the completion handler, and give it false. But you might want to roll back those changes that were made, that delete change, and we're not covering that yet. We'll cover that, how we can do that, as the last video in the series. It's a pretty simple thing, but we're just not going to cover it yet because we've covered enough for this video. Anyways, guys, thank you all so very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.